Namaste, friends. I'm XenBliss, and this is my updated instructional video that I'm making for all of my Dragon Bliss Breath light warriors that are going to join us for our 30-day challenge that's starting on Thursday, which is 10/10 for the 10/10 portal. And this is the breakdown of the warrior's breath, which is part of the 9 breath method. And I am calling it the Dragon's Bliss breath because it's the feeling that it exudes in your body. Overall well-being and bliss, which is what I'm all about. And the tumo breathing, which comes from the Tibetan monks and how they hyperactivate and supercharge their bodies and fill their bodies with qi. So I'm very excited. Let's just take a moment to land in our bodies. Place one hand over your abdomen, one hand over your heart. This is a balancing mudra. In yoga, a mudra is basically a hand gesture that activates healing energy and qi flow in your body. And the music that's playing in the background, I don't know if you can hear it, I'll turn it up just a little bit louder. This is from the 12 Hours of Sound Inner Peace series on the Paradise Tonight channel on YouTube. So please, if you like the music, subscribe to his channel, their channel. It's a really, really beautiful just background meditation music, really, really good. Okay, so one hand over the heart, one hand over the solar plexus. And just take a couple deep breaths. Land in your body. In through the nose. Out through the nose, sitting up nice and tall. And so this practice is done primarily seated. You can do it standing, but for the sake of this practice, I'm not only going to teach it sitting, but I'm going to demonstrate it sitting. Unless you've been with me for a really long time and you've done this practice many, many, many times, you are for sure able to do it standing. But if not, this is your first time ever, or just you've only been practicing it for a little while, I strongly recommend sitting down. This is a very, very powerful practice. It floods the body with lots and lots of qi in a very short period of time, 45 seconds. And it can be a little intense for some people, especially when you get to the tumo portion of the exercise. So for your safety, taking full responsibility for your well-being, I recommend getting a chair and sitting so that you are on the front 1/4 of your chair, and ideally so your knees are not lifted. You don't want your pelvis to be lower than your knees, so that you are sitting where your pelvis is straight. If you can see that in this video. Let me scoot the picture back a little bit. There's that. You see that? Yeah. So seated like so. And so you have a nice 90-degree angle. Your feet are flat on the floor, and your spine is elongated. So you have a nice flat, straight spine. You're not arching, but you're not slouching. So you have a nice straight back, lengthening up and out of your waist, shoulders down and back. Crown of the head is aligned with your spinal column and your navel center. Okay, perfect. And if you want, while I'm doing the instructional video, you can maintain this mudra. It's a balancing, like I said, balances the will and the surrender energy, the heart and the kidneys energy, so the water element and the fire element. It's a very grounding and just overall well-being mudra. Okay, so the Dragon's Warrior Breath has 3 parts total, and the first part has 2 parts that we're going to break down. Part 1 of the first part of the breath, I should say the first part of part 1, is a cleansing breath. So in yoga and Qigong, we do a couple different things, a couple different styles of breathing. There's actually more than a couple, but we're only going to talk about a couple in this practice. And primarily the purpose for them is to either release stagnant qi, which is old energy that's stuck in the body, places that are maybe blocked of energy flow. Qi and energy flow are the same thing, by the way. And also to circulate qi so that you can cultivate more of it and deepen the absorption of qi in your body. And so primarily we do either a breathing exhale with an open mouth, or we do an exhale with closed mouth. And the closed mouth exhale, so the open mouth exhale is for releasing stagnant energy. So we're going to do a cleansing breath in the first part. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, deep breath in, open mouth exhale. So that's a cleansing breath. So we're releasing anything that's holding us back or stagnant energy or things that need to be moved in the body when we do that first exhale. And then another form of exhale that we do is in yoga, we call it the ujjayi breath. And in Qigong, it's basically a circulating breath. And what we do with that is imagine that you had a mirror in front of you. So you can put your hand in front of your face and you want to fog up that mirror with your breath. You should feel the heat coming out of your mouth, right? That ha sound. Okay, and now you're going to do the same thing, but with your mouth closed. Breathe in. Exhale, make that ha sound with your mouth closed. And it's an audible sound, so you should be able to hear it. And what's happening is it ends up taking the breath into the back of your throat, which massages your thyroid and parathyroid glands, by the way. And it creates a deeper absorption of your breath. So for the first part, the very first thing we're going to focus on is the cleansing breath. So we're going to start with a deep breath in through your nose. Open mouth exhale. Cleansing breath. And notice how I move my body forward. So we're going to move and we're going to hinge at the waist as we do this practice. It doesn't have to be a big movement. It doesn't have to be like all the way down, all the way up. It's just enough to kind of create a little bit of movement in that inguinal crease right there where we store a lot of qi. And ultimately, when we get to the warrior's breath, which we'll get to in a little bit, we're going to use our body, our chest, really to create that momentum for the breath and for the qi in the body. So for right now, the cleansing breath, breathe in. Open mouth exhale, and you're just going to lean forward just a little bit. And then the other kind of breath that we'll be using in between our warrior's breaths, anytime you're just doing normal meditation practices, Qigong, yoga, it's just a normal belly breathing. So place your hands over your abdomen, and you're going to inhale through your nose and out through your nose. So this is that ujjayi breath that we were talking about. We call this the deep belly Qigong breathing or ujjayi breath in yoga. So breathing in, you're going to round your abdomen. And as you exhale, navel comes to spine. And that's a closed breath with your mouth closed, and that's a sound on that exhale. So breathing in, round the abdomen. Exhale, ujjayi breath. Deep belly Qigong breathing. We're actually going to start here. So we'll just do three deep belly breaths. Breathing in and out. And 2. And out. And 3. Feeling the calming coming over the body. And then on the next one, we're going to do that deep cleansing breath. Deep inhale using your body. Open mouth, exhale. Good. So that's part 1. Part 2. So part 2 is the warrior's breath, and it actually has 2 parts, similar to part 1. It's got the warrior's breath and the breath lock and sink down. Okay, so we're going to break that down in two parts as well. So the warrior's breath, or dragon's breath, is what I'm calling it. It is the year of the dragon. If you're not familiar with that, look up Chinese medicine and the year of the dragon. It's a fire dragon energy, and it's a very powerful, transformative energy. And so this technique, tumo, which we'll get to in a minute, means inner fire, and it's designed to deeply enhance the amount of qi flow that you have in your body, generating heat in your abdomen, your engine, otherwise known as your dantian. And the dragon is that, if you think of a fire-breathing dragon, comes in and transforms a situation or something going on in your body, or channels energy in an activated way in order to accomplish a goal or an intention. And this is a very powerful practice that you can use and direct and cultivate your qi for any of those purposes, whether it's a physical ailment, condition you're dealing with, an emotional one, psychic emotional, depression, anxiety, burns away karma. It's just a really powerful technique. And if you want to direct your intention towards a goal that you have, a project you're working on, it's very powerful for that. It's also really good for grounding and centering. And it's really, really incredible for just overall wellness and well-being. And so the warrior's breath, or the dragon's breath, if you think of a very powerful warrior, a very powerful dragon, getting ready to go into battle, it's not a soft, gentle breath like the Qigong belly breaths, or very calm, meditative breath. The warrior's breath, the dragon breath, is intense and it's intentional, and it uses the whole body, especially the chest. So like we did the cleansing breath, where you breathe in, open mouth, exhale. The warrior's breath, or the dragon's breath, uses the very base of the nose like a vacuum. You'll make that funny little squinch your nose face. And you're going to use your chest to do that. Okay. And notice how it's an audible sound. It's a very audible breath, so you can hear it when you're doing it correctly. And just for those of you that are HSPs, what we call highly sensitive people, like myself, or highly sensitive Qi, HSQs, those are people that when you take in large amounts of oxygen, you get lightheaded really easily and very quickly. Maybe if you've been sitting for a while and you get up too fast, you get lightheaded, that kind of thing. Because this is rushing so much blood through the body, and especially through the brain, you want to be mindful of that. So if you notice when you do the warrior's breath that you're starting to get a little lightheaded, then you want to tone down the sound of your breath on the next round. Okay? That just means the difference between, just make it a little softer. Okay, so taking full responsibility for your health and well-being. Okay. So the warrior's breath comes after the cleansing breath, and we'll start with 3 of those for right now. So on the cleansing breath, 1, 2, 3, breathe in, open mouth, exhale, 3 dragon's breaths. And notice how I am closing my mouth on that exhale. And the purpose of that is to circulate more qi. Again, if you're someone that gets lightheaded, you don't have to do it that way. I have seen it taught both directions, both ways, with an open and closed mouth. So play with it and see what feels best to you and what feels right to you. If it's just more natural for you to do it with an open mouth exhale, you might just have more space that you're wanting to create in the body. Maybe that's more natural for you, and you need to exhale more in that way to create that space for you. If you choose to do it with your mouth closed, just know that you're going to be accumulating and circulating a little bit more qi that way. But again, it's a very powerful practice. And as you do this over the next 30 days, you're going to start to notice incremental shifts and collection of chi and feeling more energized and more calm and more peaceful and all those things as you start to cultivate more energy. It takes a lot of energy to process the emotions and the things that are happening in the world and in our lives. And when you have enough chi, you can stay calm and centered and have the space to move through those things. So this is one of the powerful techniques to do that. So back to the dragon's breath. So we do that cleansing breath. 1, 2, 3. Open mouth, exhale. 3 dragon's breaths from the chest. And you can do it up and down, or you can do it rocking forward. But you're lifting that chest and then you're compressing down and inward as you do that. Okay? And then the second part of the dragon's breath, the warrior's breath part of this technique, is called the breath lock and sink down. So what is a breath lock? So in yoga, breath locks are ways that you breathe, specifically ways that you hold your breath in order to cultivate more chi, in order to circulate and absorb more chi. And in yoga, they're specifically called bandhas. And in Qigong, we call them breath locks. And it's essentially the same thing. It just means a way of holding the breath to absorb more energy, absorb more chi. And so for this breath lock, we're going to do it at the top of the warrior's breath, the top of the dragon's breath. After our third one, when we get to the practice, we're actually going to do a series of 5 to 9 breaths. Again, checking in with your body and seeing what works best for you and what feels good for you. If you're just getting started for the first time, I recommend the 5 breaths to start. And as you get more practiced in this technique, if you want to move it into the 9 breaths, then that's the ultimate goal for this technique. So the breath lock, you're going to hold your breath at the top of the 5th breath. So we'll just say, but for the sake of this training, we'll just do 3 because it's just easier that way. So that we'll say this is the 3rd breath. I'm going to breathe in on the warrior's breath. And then I'm going to hold my breath at the top. You're going to hold it in the back of your throat. Okay? And as you hold your breath, you're circulating that chi. And then the sink down is we're going to then move the breath from the back of our throat, and we're going to breathe it all the way down to our abdomen. And the way we do that is basically move the breath from the throat down to the abdomen. Okay? And what happens is it's like think of like swallowing your breath or swallowing your saliva. It's that same feeling. And when we do the sink down, you're going to swallow it to a rounded abdomen. So it looks like this. I'm going to do the last warrior's breath. Hold at the top. That's the breath lock. Swallow it down. And I'm going to allow my abdomen to inflate like a Buddha belly. Okay? So that's the breath lock and sink down. So again, this is the warrior's breath for the 3rd one, we'll say. Hold at the top for the breath lock. Swallow your breath down to your abdomen. And let your abdomen stay gently out and down. So you are going to have a little poochy abdomen for this technique, and it's on purpose. Okay. And then from here, this is the most powerful part of the technique. So we've done we'll do 3 warrior's breaths to do the practice, but eventually we're going to do the 5 and the 9 when we actually do this as a challenge. You've done that. You've done your breath lock. You swallowed. You did your cleansing breath. You did your warrior's breath. This is the 3rd one. Hold at the top. Swallow it down to a rounded abdomen. And now from here, part 3 of this breath, this is called the tumo exhale. And I mentioned earlier, tumo means inner fire. So there's an initiation that the monks do in Tibet in order to get monkavized, if you will, in order to be initiated into their brotherhood. And one of the things that they have to do in order to get that initiation is they have to go out into the snow in the big cold Himalayas and sit with wet towels or wet sheets on their body in the snow and do this tumo breathing. And what it does is it generates that inner fire so much so in their bellies that their bodies heat up, so they're not actually cold, right? Because they're generating so much heat. And what happens is it heats up the towels to the point that they steam, and eventually they dry out with their own chi. And so we're not going to be drying towels in this practice. If you feel like doing that, I can connect you to a really powerful healer, shaman guide. His name is Wim Hof. He's familiar. He's famous for being called the Iceman. He's actually the one of the trainers that trained my teacher, who taught me how to do this technique. And he's fabulous. But for the sake of this right now, we're not going to go and dry out any towels, at least not tonight. But just so you have our frame of reference, that's what's happening in the body. Okay. And so for the tumo exhale, two things are going to happen. You're going to be pressurizing the chi, which means the reason we do the breath lock and the sink down is because we're holding that chi in to start generating the deeper absorption. And then we're going to pressurize the chi as we're exhaling in a similar fashion to if you thought of like if you had a fire hose or just a regular hose, and how it has all that pressure of the water when it comes out really, really strong. But if you took the hose and you bent it like so and kinked it, so to speak, what would happen to the water, right? The water pressure would almost cease to nothing, but it would be building all of that pressure at the end. And once you opened the kink out of the hose, once again, the pressure of the water would just right through, right? And so we're doing that similar, essentially that same intention with our chi, with our breath. And that allows for deeper absorption, more cultivation of chi, and then the pressurization of the chi allows it to go into the body in deeper ways. And it is very, very powerful. And it's what I've experienced to be the best natural high ever. Phenomenal. So to pressurize the chi, we're going to do something called the tumo exhale. And again, we remember that swallow it down to a rounded abdomen. So we got our abdomen out and down. And most of the time when we breathe, what do? We inflate the abdomen out on an inhale, and then we bring the abdomen in as we exhale. Right? We inhale, round the abdomen. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. But for this tumo exhale, we're going to kind of do the opposite of that. So it's going to feel a little counterintuitive, counterproductive to what we're doing, but it serves a purpose. So as we do that warrior's breath, that last dragon's breath, deep breath in, hold at the top, swallow it down to the breath lock and sink down, round the abdomen, and now on the exhale, we're going to leave our abdomen very gently, keyword gently, kind of out and down. So it's almost like at an angle. And we're going to keep a gentle tone on the abdomen so the abdomen stays out during that whole exhale. So rather than coming in on the exhale, it's actually going to stay out and down slightly. Okay? And while we do that, we're going to purse our lips. So we're making just a little, almost like a whistling sound. And it's going to be a very gentle exhale. Think of it as the longest exhale you've ever done, essentially. The longer the exhale, the more chi you cultivate and the more powerful it is. And the more space you create in the body. So the more you do this technique, the longer your exhale will get. So don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen like the first few times you do it. Just notice, maybe have a journal as you're going through this 30 days and take note what you're experiencing. If you've noticed that your breath gets longer on the exhale, what you're noticing as far as your lightheadedness or not lightheadedness and things like that. So just be mindful of what's happening during this technique for you. So on the tumo exhale, we'll pretend like this is the third warrior's breath. Breath lock and sink down. Hold at the top, swallow it down to a rounded abdomen. Let the abdomen stay out and down. And you're going to purse your lips and just blow out that air. And then if you remember the belly breathing that we did at the very beginning, then we just return to that in between rounds of breath. So now I go back to a belly breath. Inhale, it inflates. Exhale, navel to spine. Inhale, inflates. Exhale, navel to spine. And that ujjayi, deep Qigong belly breaths. Okay, so once again, the tumo exhale, top of the breath, we do that breath lock and sink down, last warrior's breath. Swallow it down, around the abdomen. Tumo exhale, pursed lips, keeping the abdomen out and down. And then return to belly breaths. And just be mindful, if this is difficult for you to do belly breaths, that's okay. When we first come into the world, we breathe from our bellies. If you look at a baby, they breathe belly breaths. They're not chest breathers. And that's because that's our normal state of being. That's where our fire is, our inner chi, right? But as we go through life, we tend to create obstacles in our body, blocks in our body, where we store packs of energy, or we get knots and tight muscles and things like that, which are associated with the emotional state that we've been in through different parts of our life. And those emotions get stored in our body in different parts. And so if you are, and I'll talk about it as we go later on down the road, but there's the 5 elements that we work with in Qigong, and the lung element. The lung element is the metal, and we'll talk about more in later videos, but it has to do with our capacity to have staying power, have action, be able to take action towards the things that we're wanting to create. And metal is the energy of prosperity and abundance. And so when we have blockages in our chest, when we start holding on to emotional traumas and things like that, our chest can get really tight, and it can we can become very shallow chest breathers. You ever seen anybody do that? And if that's you, this is perfect, because this is going to help open all that up. If you have asthma, if you have allergies, this is a really powerful technique to help in your healing journey. My teacher, he was born with asthma and had really, really terrible asthma. And when he discovered these breathing techniques, he, let's just say, he no longer experiences those issues. So the lung, when we have blockages and we have chest breathing, we're not able to cultivate and circulate qi through the way that we want to, and it keeps energy flowing in our head instead of flowing from our dantian all the way through the proper channels in the body. And that can create a lot of anxiety, that can create stress in the body, which then also can equal anxiety. So what we want to do is we want to open up the chest cavity, we want to open up the lungs, and that's the warrior's breath, open up the lungs. And then the tumo exhale pressurizes that chi and brings it all the way back to the abdomen, so that we're building that inner fire. A lot of times we have the opposite in our culture than we should have, which is we have a hot head and a cold tummy. And as you're doing this practice, you'll probably start to notice heat building in your lower abdomen, and that's a good thing. We want that, and in your palms. So what we want is we want warm tummy, ideally hot tummy, cool head. Okay, all right. So that's the technique. We'll do a couple rounds just so you can practice it now, and I hope this video serves you. Looking forward to all of you that are going to do this with me for the second time. Some of you that have been with me for a while. We've done this over the years, but this will be our second official 30-day breath challenge. So I'm excited. All right, so reviewing the whole technique. First, we start with a cleansing breath. Technically, we start with the belly breaths, right? So we start with that meditation just to kind of balance the body. And then we're going to do the Qigong belly breaths. We're going to do a cleansing breath, warrior's breath or dragon breath. We're going to do 5 of those. The breath lock and sink down. Swallow it down to the rounded abdomen. That's the sink down. And then the tumo exhale. Okay, followed by the Qigong belly breaths in between that. Okay, all right, so here we go. Starting with our Qigong breath. This technique gets me fired up. I get excited. So I definitely have to do the belly breaths in between to calm my chi. Okay. And on the count of 3, we'll do a cleansing breath. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Open mouth, exhale, blow out. 5 warrior's breaths. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5, hold at the top. Breath lock and sink down. Swallow it down to rounded abdomen. The abdomen come out. Tumo exhale. And then return to those belly breaths afterwards. And I'm holding my hands like this so you can see what's happening in my abdomen. To actually do this technique, you're going to place one hand over your abdomen and the other hand over the top. And if ladies, primarily we want left hand on top over right hand, just because we're covering the navel center, which is a feminine energy in terms of the way that our bodies are, the way our energy centers are lined up in the feminine form. And so the right hand is that masculine energy, and so we cover that over the top to balance the energies. And it's opposite for men. So men, it's left hand over the abdomen, right hand over the top. And that's just how we're wired in terms of energy channels, the yin and the yang. But if this feels more natural for you to be this way or the other way, do what feels good to you. Okay. So sometimes I interchange them because I'm balancing one energy over the other sometimes. So, but that's the traditional way of doing it. All right. We'll do 2 more rounds on the count of 3. Cleansing breath. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Breathe out. Open mouth, exhale. 5 warrior's breaths. Dragon breath. Number 4. Number 5. Hold at the top. Breath lock and sink down. Swallow to rounded abdomen. Tumo exhale. And then just return to those belly breaths when you're done. And something to be mindful of. The tumo exhale is very, very strong, powerful tool. It's, like I said, it was designed to heat the body up to such a degree that we could dry out wet towels in the snow. So if you notice this feeling of almost like a womp, 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 like a wave that comes over you, that's when you're really getting it. And it's okay if you don't experience that off the bat. The more you do it, eventually you'll get to that place. But if you do notice that from the start and you're getting lightheaded, again, take responsibility for your breathing and your well-being and tone down your breath, make it softer and quieter, okay? And if you're not feeling much of anything at all, maybe you're not super sensitive to energy or to qi or circulation, that kind of thing, then feel free to crank it up, okay? So taking full responsibility for your wellness and your well-being. Last time, and then we'll conclude this video. On the count of 3, cleansing breath. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Open mouth. Exhale. Blow out all that stagnant qi. Warrior's breath or dragon's breath. Number 4. Number 5. Breath lock and sink down. Tumo exhale. And just return to that belly breathing as at the end. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing all your magical, beautiful, wonderful faces. I know we've got, I think we're at 7 or 8 that have said yes so far. We've got 2 more spaces, and hopefully the 2 of you will join us between now and Thursday, and we'll have a full house. All right. Thank you so much for being here and watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Blessed be, and may you walk in bliss.